good afternoon. The Dave Sheldon Show here on Tri-City Radio. Joining me on the phone lines right now from suburban Washington, we're not going to give away his exact location. We're going to try and keep that a secret, is the head coach of the Everett Silvertips, Kevin Constantine. Good afternoon, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for taking the time out. Now, the reason why I bring you on is it's the eve of the Stanley Cup Final. In fact, it goes in a few minutes' time here from Pittsburgh. You were a coach in both Pittsburgh and San Jose, so you've got a unique perspective here. Can you give us a sense of what it would feel like right now? We'll start in San Jose first. It's their first Stanley Cup Final ever. What's the market feel like down there, in your opinion?
In my opinion, they'd be thrilled. I mean, don't forget San Jose is a little bit unique in that it doesn't have any of the other major sports, no baseball, basketball, football to compete with in relation to the Sharks. So the Sharks are the only team they call their own. I guess the 49ers are just up the road, but still that's, the San Francisco 49ers, not the San Jose 49ers. So that makes the town unique in that they're, 100% in behind the Sharks. I was fortunate enough to be the coach that played the first game in that arena. To tell you how excited the town is, that year we beat Detroit in a pretty famous, one of the biggest upsets in the history of playoff hockey. And they held a parade in the town for us winning one round of the playoffs. That's how excited they were to get hockey into that town. We tried to turn them down. We said, well, those are things you hold when you win it all, not when you win one round. But they insisted. Now their demands have gone a long way since 1993 when that happened. I mean, their expectations are much higher. Nonetheless, they would be entirely behind that team. So it's very exciting, and for specifically for Marlowe, Thornton, guys who have been there their whole careers or most of their careers in Thornton's case, to finally make the Cup Final. I think erases a lot of questioning that might have gone on about the leadership of those two guys. So it's great for those two guys also.
Give us a sense of Pittsburgh. You were there for 3 seasons as well. I mean, they've won a couple Stanley Cups. They won one as recently as 2009. But whenever you get to the final, it's got to be pretty special.
Well, I coached in Pittsburgh for 3 years. I stayed in Pittsburgh for a few years after that and started a junior team in Pittsburgh. My wife's from Pittsburgh, so when I went and coached in Switzerland, she stayed in Pittsburgh. So I feel, strongly connected. I'm not a native there, but I can tell you this. I think Pittsburgh is one of the best sports towns in North America. All their teams kind of unique, kind of interesting. All are, black and gold. That's just a little trivia fact. But I would say that if you're in Pittsburgh more than any city in the U.S. and you go into any spot, let's say a grocery store, whatever sports team is playing in that season, you're going to find 50% of the people walking through the grocery store have a Pittsburgh Penguin T-shirt on today. And so that's just a tidbit of how much they get behind their sports team. So they're going to be crazy behind the Penguins because that's just the nature of Pittsburgh. They're a very, very great sports town. All the 3 sports they support.
Well, I know I've been down to Seattle a few times when the Steelers come to town, and you can't get enough of the terrible towels. They travel well as well. The fan base there is rabid.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. I mean, I loved Pittsburgh. I thought they were. I'm from the Midwest in the U.S., and the Midwest is kind of considers themselves kind of a down to earth, maybe not as fast paced as the East Coast or West Coast. And Pittsburgh's got a Midwest feel. A great history to their sports, great history to the town, beautiful city. And it all started obviously with Lemieux. It's carried all the way through with Lemieux moving up all the way to ownership, bailing out a team that was in bankruptcy at one point. And then it started all over again with Crosby. And And now they went through, for a Crosby-led team, a long, long period between their last Stanley Cup win and now their next Stanley Cup Finals. And so this has been kind of torturous for Pittsburgh, these years where you have a Crosby and a Malkin, but you can't get yourself back to the finals. So this is very, very exciting for that town and those players.
Kevin Constantine, my guest, he is the head coach of the Everett Silvertips of the Western Hockey League, but also coached in the National Hockey League with Pittsburgh, San Jose, and also New Jersey. It's interesting that you bring up the Crosby-Malkin point because you brought up the exact same thing about Thornton and about Marleau, and to a degree about Pavelski as well. But Thornton and Marleau have been in this league for a heck of a long time with no success, and then you have that stunted success with Malkin and with Crosby. It's who do you pull for in this situation? I mean, I know that you've got some Pittsburgh roots with your wife and all, but I mean, from a hockey standpoint, you've got guys that haven't won the Cup who are finally getting there after 19 years, like a Marleau, or a guy like Crosby who could solidify his legacy with another Stanley Cup win here.
Well, I think it's even now you mentioned these leaders and the pressure that's put on the key players. Even now, as the playoffs went on and Pittsburgh was doing great, every time that Crosby or Malkin would go 3 or 4 games without a point, that became, the stat that you saw on TV as you're watching the game. Man, Malkin hasn't had, any points in the last 4 games. So the pressure's on those guys constantly. I don't know if you base who you're going to root for. If I don't root for Pittsburgh, I got to do that silently with my wife rooting loudly for Pittsburgh. In the case of Thornton and Marleau, this is probably it. I mean, these guys are close to retiring, almost have already retired. So if they don't do it now, they're never going to do it. Malkin and Crosby are a little bit younger and will have opportunity beyond this particular finals to still win a cup. So part of me, having coached both teams and not really being I'm not really a fan, so I don't generally root for anybody. I watch hockey and I try to learn from it because I'm still coaching. So I'm examining the game, not rooting for anybody in the game. But I'd have to root a little bit for San Jose just because of the fact Marleau and Thornton are this is their last shot. So watching them have a chance to win a cup would be pretty cool.
Kevin Constantine, the head coach of the Everett Silvertips of the Western Hockey League, is my guest. He coached both San Jose and Pittsburgh. We've talked about the demeanor of the towns and the players. I want to get into your head as a coach, Kevin, because you know what, I was able to watch you for 3 years as an analyst with the Everett Silvertips and, of course, in the Western Hockey League for a number of years, the AHL. And you've taught me a lot in the sense of how to watch the game. And Coach Pete DeBoer said something interesting. He was asked about Pittsburgh's speed, and he said it's the best that he's seen in the National Hockey League, but the way to combat speed is through possession. You've always talked to me about possession in hockey being paramount. Could you expand on what he's saying?
Well, it's the other team can't have speed if you have the puck. So, I think if you went back 10, 15 years, even right about the time, Dave, that you were announcing Silvertips games and we started, our relationship and talking about the game, right about then, there really was a transition in hockey from if you're in your end, just get it out. And if you're going through the neutral zone, don't turn it over. So those were hockey foundation items. The problem is if you have, hey, in your end, just make sure you get it out to the neutral zone. If you have too much of that going on, you're just giving the other team the puck in the neutral zone. And if you have too much of a dump it in all the time, you're giving the other team the puck also. So you don't want to unnecessarily give the other team the puck. You can't be a turnover team. You can't be a turnover team in basketball. You can't be a turnover team in football. Look at the stats of teams that, turn pucks over, turn the ball over in basketball or the football over, they lose. So you can't be a turnover team, but you still got to try to be a possession team. So the more you have the puck, the less the other team does, and Pittsburgh can't generate speed till they get the puck. That's when they generate speed in their transition. So San Jose will try to have a great balance between in what, is called puck decisions. And I think that's a key to today's game is you have to make great puck decisions. In fact, if you go back and watch, YouTube Mike Sullivan's introductory comments when they made him the coach midway through the season, and he talks about that. He talks about, we want players to make good decisions. We don't want to take the skill out of the hands of the Malkins and the Crosbys, but we still need all our players to make good puck decisions as to what you're going to do. Keep it, stick handle it, shoot it, dump it, pass it. Those decisions are critical in today's game.
Kevin Constantine, my guest. We're talking a little bit of the Stanley Cup Final. He coached both San Jose and Pittsburgh. We're talking about the coaches right now. I mentioned Pete DeBoer. Both DeBoer and Sullivan. Sullivan came in midway through the year. You know that. DeBoer in his first full year. You had success as a National Hockey League coach as well in your first year with the team. What is the difference? I mean, for a Pete DeBoer, Todd McClellan's a hell of a coach, and he's in Edmonton now doing his thing. And we all know about Coach Mike Johnston down in Portland. He's done his thing as well. They're good coaches, but these guys brought something different to the table. What is it that is transitional that helps a coach go from the team after some failure or success that was there?
Well, the same as a marriage. It's a honeymoon. So if you've been married, you'd understand. Early on in a relationship, early on in coaching, everybody listens to each other. Especially in the way of San Jose and Pittsburgh, or for most new coaches, you're going into a situation where there was probably some underachieving. That's why the coaching change was made. So when the coach walks in, people want and are looking for something different, something better. And so the buy-in in your first year is probably as strong as it'll ever be. And then if you can win a little bit and overachieve from the previous coach or from the previous season, then there's some real extra buy-in, and then you can get on a bit of a roll that'll carry you. That, as a relationship goes, that might deteriorate over time when your message gets old, or some of the enthusiasm of the beginning is gone. But you're right, both coaches are benefiting from being new to their teams, having what they've tried to install bought into by the players. And I think both teams execute the game plan extremely well. That's why they're where they're at. You can talk about the great players on each team, but you got to combine talent with some type of structure and team play. And both teams have done a tremendous job. I think Pittsburgh and San Jose, if you both looked at them, you always said, well, there's some pretty good talent there, but they need to have a structure around which they play. Well, now you can't. You both do. Both play with tremendous structure, as well as the gifted players that are on those teams.
Kevin Constantine, my guest. We're talking about the Stanley Cup Final. We'll keep you for a couple more minutes. Kevin, at goaltending, always a big issue in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You've got two young guys, Martin Jones for San Jose. You got, of course, Matt Murray with Astoria in Pittsburgh. How amplified will goaltending here be in the final with these two teams playing the way they're playing right now?
Well, I think the biggest story in Pittsburgh for me, and I'm an ex-goalie, and I love goalies, so I'm partial to goalies. But I've felt that over the last, ever since Pittsburgh won the Stanley Cup with Marc-Andre Fleury as a young goalie who did a tremendous job in helping him win the Cup, I never thought he performed at a Stanley Cup pace in the subsequent years. I felt their Achilles heel was goaltending. And now, because of maybe an injury, maybe that's the luck of the draw and the fact that they kind of had to put Matt Murray in. Matt Murray, to me, is the difference between Pittsburgh winning a cup years ago and never getting back to the finals and now getting back again. The fact that he had to play and responded so well. So I think he's a huge story. Of course, Pittsburgh tried to go back to Fleury, and that didn't work. And then they made a great decision in Game 6 against Tampa to go back to Murray. That's just my opinion, a great decision.
Oh, I totally agree.
And so I think that was a huge reason Pittsburgh's in the finals is Matt Murray versus Fleury was their other option. I think that makes all the difference in the world. Of course, Mike Sullivan and the coaching job and the structure to go along with their talent are big factors too. And the same probably can be said about San Jose. It's just not as dramatic a story because Jones has been their goalie all year, so it's not as big a story as what Matt Murray's done. But you're right, two great young goaltenders, and it's always 60, 50, 60, 70% of your success is based on your goalies. Those guys have gotten it done for both teams this year.
Last question for you, Coach. Kevin Constantine, my guest. The last question will be, if San Jose wins the Stanley Cup, it's because of what?
Great question. I think it's because of depth. I think their ability to play four lines and not be just dependent on, your stars. Marlowe, Thornton, we've talked about Pavelski as being the stars, and Jones. I think besides that, they have an incredibly deep team and play at four lines consistency. So I would say depth. They're going to win because of depth.
Okay, same question. If Pittsburgh's going to win, it's because of what?
Matt Murray. For me, I mean, we've known Pittsburgh's team is Malkin and Crosby. We've known that for 7 years. So how come they haven't been there before? Why are they there this year, and why would they win this year? Matt Murray's been unbelievable in that, I think. And so I think they're a great team, but their backbone starts with the job he's done. So I think the goalie for Pittsburgh would be the difference maker.
Now, I know that you've told me that you're interested in seeing San Jose win. Who do you think wins this series?
Well, I'm going to disappoint you. I don't have a clue. I think it's a great series. I used to always kind of think the Western Conference was much better. So most years I would have said that, but I think in the last 3 months, Pittsburgh's been the best team. Well, since Mike Sullivan got there, and then forget the first month while he put his system in place. So once he was there a month until this moment, I think Pittsburgh's been the best team. So maybe just because of that, I think Pittsburgh's slightly stronger. And so I think Pittsburgh will win it.
Really enjoy the conversation, Kevin, as always. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your long weekend.
Great. Good talking to you.
That's Kevin Constantine of the Everett Silvertips. We'll take a break, come back with more of the Dave Sheldon Show after this on Tri-City Radio.